Tonight, the search for peace. U.S. and Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia began talks to end the war, even after Kyiv launches its largest drone strike on Moscow since Russia's invasion 3 years ago. And tit for tat.
I think we're kind of collateral damage, and unfortunately, I think we get caught in the crossfire of that.
Canada's response draws a threat of more tariffs from President Trump, rattling the global markets, all while Republicans on Capitol Hill
We'll have the votes. We're going to pass the CR. We can do it on our own.
race to lock down support for a government spending bill. Plus, closing the gap.
But these people here have came in our neighborhoods. They give us the best food that we could ever ask for.
A father and son team up to produce an oasis in the middle of a food desert. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The war in Ukraine at a turning point. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation in Washington. I'm John Jessup. Well, Ukraine agrees to a proposed immediate 30-day ceasefire, unlocking the pause in much-needed military aid and intelligence sharing. Leading the United States delegation in talks in Saudi Arabia, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz.
We'll take this offer now to the Russians, and we hope that they'll say yes, to peace. The ball is now in their court.
The Ukrainian delegation today made something very clear, that they share President Trump's vision for peace. They share his determination to end the fighting, to end the killing, to end the tragic kind of meat grinder of people and national treasure that's happening on the front in Ukraine.
Now this announcement comes after Ukraine struck a blow to Moscow with the largest drone attack since the war began. Russia says it shot down more than 300 drones, but some got through, killing at least 2 people and wounding 18 others, including children. The strike seen as retaliation for Russia's massive attack on Ukraine last week. The talks come after weeks of rising tension between Washington and Kyiv after that tense meeting in the Oval Office. Well, while there's new potential for peace in Ukraine, hope for peace in the Middle East is fading as hostage talks between Israel and Hamas remain deadlocked, and now Syria is reeling from a fresh wave of violence. Deadly clashes have ripped through Syria's coastal cities as government forces battle armed groups loyal to deposed President Bashar al-Assad. War monitors say more than 1,000 people have been killed in a matter of recent days, including 800 civilians, most in revenge attacks targeting Alawites, a Shiite Muslim minority offshoot once led by Assad. It's the worst bloodshed since Assad's fall, a brutal flashback to Syria's civil war. Today, refugees were seen fleeing across the border into Lebanon.
The suffering is very high. It is a complete extermination of the Alawite sect, of our brothers the Christians, of our brothers the Shiite. They do not want anyone. They have killed the ethics, the morals. They have done everything.
Israel is calling the violence ethnic cleansing and warning of a new jihadist regime taking hold in Syria.
When we say we are concerned about the security on the Syrian border, it means that we are concerned about those jihadist monsters committing a massacre and ethnic cleansing of Jews and Druze within our borders. We will not allow the formation of jihadist threat on our borders with Syria.
Since Assad's fall, Israel has taken control of a buffer zone in southern Syria as a means of preventing chaos from spilling across its border. Well, the Israel-Hamas war is once again at the center of a political firestorm at a major American university. A Columbia University student and prominent Palestinian activist now faces deportation. Protesters are demanding the release of Mahmoud Halil, while President Trump warns his arrest is the first of many. CBN National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke joins us now with details. Caitlin, what brought the administration to focus on this specific student?
John, as a grad student, Mahmoud Khalil is in the country on a green card. Last year, though, he helped lead pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia, actions the Trump administration believes to be aligned with Hamas, a designated terror organization.
Our main demand, which is divestment from the Israeli occupation, there's an impasse in that.
Khalil became one of the most visible campus activists last year, acting as a negotiator for students who erected a tent encampment on Columbia's campus. Now his lawyer says he's being held at a Louisiana detention facility due to President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism.
They've invoked this broad, vague immigration authority that in theory allows, with due process, the removal of someone based on a certification of the Secretary of State that they're compromising national security interests. This is a preposterous and dangerous extension of that authority, and it's basically meant to remove spies, not individuals engaged in human rights activism.
Mahmoud Khalil was an individual who was given the privilege of coming to this country to study at one of our nation's finest universities and colleges. And he took advantage of that opportunity, of that privilege, by siding with terrorists.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked Khalil's deportation while the case plays out in court.
His speech is absolutely protected by the Constitution, and it should be chilling to everyone that the United States government could punish or try to deport someone because they disapprove of the speech they're engaged in.
Still, Trump says more arrests are coming, writing on Truth Social, quote, "If you support terrorism, including the slaughtering of innocent men, women, and children, your presence is contrary to our national and foreign policy interests, and you are not welcome here."
This is an individual who organized group protests that not only disrupted college campus classes and harassed Jewish American students and made them feel unsafe on their own college campus, but also distributed pro-Hamas propaganda, flyers with the logo of Hamas.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio writing on X, quote, "We will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported." As Khalil waits for a hearing on Wednesday, his attorney has requested he be returned to New York while the case plays out. John?
All right, CBN National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke. Thanks, Caitlin. Mark Caleb-Smith joins us now. He is the director of the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University. Mark, welcome back. So the White House says Secretary of State Marco Rubio has the legal authority to revoke Mahmoud Khalil's visa because of his alleged support for a terror organization. Mark, does participating in a protest or organizing a demonstration meet what's considered the threshold for supporting a terror group? Help us navigate what's going on here.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important legal question that's going to have to be dealt with. The Supreme Court did determine in 1945 case called Bridges versus Wixon that aliens, people with a green card or people with here under temporary status even, do enjoy First Amendment protections. But as the Trump administration is citing, there's also federal law in place that allows the government to step in and remove some of those protections for someone who is either endorsing or espousing, as the language of the statute, terrorist activity or support for terrorist organizations. Participating in a protest, handing out leaflets in support of that protest really may or may not reach that threshold. I think the courts are going to have to get involved, as they obviously will, and it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds.
I know there are some questions as to why he was moved to Louisiana. I also want to ask you about this, though. Can immigration consequences like visa revocation be imposed without any criminal charges? Does that raise due process concerns?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest, one of the larger questions here is how much authority do we want to put in the hands of the executive to really have an independent judgment to reach these sorts of conclusions. I understand at some level we might be sitting here thinking, you know, of course we're against someone who espouses support for an organization that we generally do see as terrorists, but think through what this would mean for another president from another party or with a different ideology who might have a different approach in defining what terrorism or terrorist activity really is. And so broadening that amount of power could lead to some really severe abuse. And so, yeah, I think there's a real question here. How much power do we want the president to possess, and how much are we willing to sacrifice under the First Amendment?
I think what you're alluding to is the so-called dangerous slippery slope, or the precedent that it might set. How unusual is it, though, for a green card to be revoked in this way? Does that potentially open the door to broader questions of immigration enforcement against political activists?
Yeah, to my knowledge, and I'm not going to claim expertise on all elements of immigration law for sure. To my knowledge, this is pretty unusual for it to be based on potentially First Amendment protected activities. For a regular citizen, this would be fully protected. And generally, the First Amendment does apply to people who are not citizens. You know, the language of the document, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech, isn't just restricted to citizens. It actually applies to everyone. And so, yeah, I think there are real serious constitutional questions that need to be dealt with here. Personally, I hope the court sides on the favor of expression and protection of speech, but I can understand there are some real national security arguments to make here.
All right, Dr. Mark Caleb Smith with Cedarville University, thank you for helping us kind of navigate and understand some of the points at play here tonight.
Thanks.
Well, before we go, some good news to report, an update on Pope Francis. Doctors say the 88-year-old pontiff is no longer in immediate danger from pneumonia, but caution, he's not out of the woods just yet. Doctors say he'll remain in the hospital for several more days to receive treatment. The Vatican reports the Pope woke up Tuesday morning after a quiet night. An escalating trade war and a budget showdown. The latest responses from the Trump administration right after this. Welcome back. The stock market taking a major hit today, opening more than 50 points down and then sliding after President Trump announced additional tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. While economists fear a recession is more likely now, the White House defends that the economy is going through what it calls a transition period. CBN senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright joins us now. Kelly, what more can you tell us about this deepening trade war between the United States and our northern neighbor in Canada?
Well, let's talk about what happened earlier today, and that's the fact that Ontario, Canada, had stated that it would impose or was placing a 25% tariff on electricity. Electricity, by the way, that comes into the states, the United States, that supports Canada, or at least receives that electricity from Canada. The president then taking to Truth Social, he wasn't happy about that. He said, I have instructed my Secretary of Commerce to add an additional 25% tariff to 50% on all steel and aluminum coming to the United States from Canada. And he said he wanted that to be effective starting tomorrow morning on March 12th. But then we have just heard from Ontario stating that they will pause imposing any tariffs. They would like to talk about it, come to the United States and talk to the Secretary of Commerce and other cabinet members, including the president, about how they can stop this trade war from actually imploding on Canada. And it's a matter of brinkmanship, and the president seems to be winning so far. But earlier today, during the White House press briefing, here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt talking about that.
We are in a period of economic transition. We are in a period of transition from the mess that was created under Joe Biden in the previous administration. Joe Biden left this country in an economic disaster. Several statistics to point out. The delinquency rate on credit card loans increased 63% under Joe Biden, hitting a near 12-year high. Under Joe Biden, all net job growth went to foreign-born Americans. Real wages declined by 1.5% under Joe Biden. And as we all know, and this administration continues to combat, prices soared more than 20% under Joe Biden because of his reckless spending and economic policies. So we are in a period of transition from that economic nightmare under a president who had no idea what he was doing, never held a private sector job in his life, into a golden age of American manufacturing.
And there you have it, Caroline Leavitt speaking for the Trump administration, which believes that tariffs will help. Reciprocal trade will also help. And of course, a lot of that will go into effect on April 2nd. And basically, this White House believes that tariffs ultimately will bring America back to being financially prosperous again.
Kelly, on to another hot topic. Elon Musk talked about how Doge was looking for waste in entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicaid. How has the White House responded to that?
Well, contrary to their critics, they went on to state that they will not in any way cut Social Security or any entitlement program, stating the president has been very adamant about that. And when it comes to any rift between he and Elon Musk, that is definitely not something that's going on. In fact, Elon Musk was here just moments ago showing the president at least 5 Teslas, because the president stated that he wanted to buy a Tesla to show support for Elon Musk, and even on the South Lawn calling Elon Musk a patriot and stating that people in America should support Elon Musk for the efforts that he's doing to try to help America cut waste and fraud and spending.
Kelly, real quickly before we go, what has the president been telling congressional Republicans as it relates to the continuing resolution in the last 15 or so seconds we have?
Very clearly, to get it done, to get all Republicans on board to pass it in order for him to pave the way for a more prosperous future that's according to the president.
Looking for party unity. CBN senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright. Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Well, an update for you now on that crash, the mid-air plane crash in Washington, D.C. The National Transportation Safety Board is recommending a ban on some helicopter flights around Washington, saying under the current setup, helicopters and planes can be as close as 75 feet close to each other during landing. Officials are investigating the cause of the January 29th deadly collision between a commercial jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter. The crash killed 67 people over the Potomac River just outside Ronald Reagan National Airport. The NTSB says it's possible the helicopter had inaccurate altitude readings moments before the crash. It also cannot rule out as of yet possible communication issues. Coming up, one small store, one big impact. How a family is fighting hunger in their community with healthy food, hard work, and a whole lot of heart. Welcome back. More than 23 million Americans live in what are called food deserts, usually low-income communities that don't have big supermarkets to provide affordable or healthy food. Now, one father and son are bringing change to one such community. As Charlene Aaron reports, their grocery store has become an oasis that's transforming their customers' lives.
E. Palmer Supermarket here in Norfolk, Virginia is in the Berkeley section of the city. Complete with fresh fruit and vegetables, it's become a beacon of hope for an area that went years without a full-service grocery store like this.
There's a lot of seniors in the area, a lot of senior walk-up traffic, so we thought this would be a good area to really get the people the healthy food options that they need.
That led Ezron Palmer and his dad Michael to open E. Palmer Supermarket 3 years ago. Located in the heart of a food desert, they obtained a grant and loan from the city to help launch the business.
None of the big box retailers wanted to come into your food lines, such names like that. So they provided an opportunity with a grant to get it started. So once I graduated from VCU, my father let me know the opportunity. We drafted up a business plan and we were running from there.
Nationwide, more than 23 million people live in these food deserts, which can be found in rural and urban areas. Zooming into a city like Norfolk, Virginia, you might be surprised that an area like this exists, where residents often live more than a mile from the nearest supermarket. People here often have little choice other than to buy unhealthy processed food available at nearby convenience stores.
Most of the food in these establishments are ready to eat or commercially packaged goods. They're highly processed foods. You typically don't find ease of access to like raw fruits and vegetables or whole ingredients.
Dr. Darren Detweiler, a professor specializing in food and agriculture at Northeastern University, says people in these areas face a greater risk of diet-related health conditions.
When we're looking specifically at the health impacts, we have everything from foodborne illnesses to obesity, diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, and other concerns.
That's a major reason E. Palmer offers customers, many who live on a fixed income, incentives for purchasing healthy food.
We try to keep up with our produce as best as we can, getting the freshest produce possible at the good price for our customers. We also offer to our EBT customers 50% off their fruits and vegetables anytime they shop.
I saw the fresh fruits, the fresh vegetables, the fresh meats, the prices. Within this area, if you didn't have this, you have to go way out to get it.
Detweiler says there are a number of reasons why food deserts exist.
Lack of supermarket investment, high real estate costs and zoning laws, supply chain challenges, but also there's some systemic elements, housing discrimination, underdeveloped neighborhoods, even the idea of structural inequalities within communities that have historical and systemic basis in racism.
Something the Palmers are helping to overcome through hard work and faith.
Can't do anything without Christ. Everything through God, and He just helped us throughout the way, keeping faith, making sure that we have everything that we need as far as the knowledge and the strength to continue.
Customers are beyond grateful, such as longtime resident Joan Spalding.
All the other stores are so far, I guess they don't want to come in this neighborhood. But these people here have came in our neighborhood. They give us the best food that we could ever ask for. We have fresh fruits, vegetables, everything. I come here every day. It's like home, and I love it so much.
Others highlight the family-like atmosphere, such as a weekly free breakfast for seniors at the store's on-site restaurant.
The store is very important. Without this store, the community wouldn't be a community.
Feedback that fills this grocer with a sense of fulfillment, knowing he's meeting the needs of many, hopefully for years to come.
It feels great, coming here to see the smiling faces on people, the products we offer with our healthy food options and everything like that. It's really great to know that we have that here for them to come and get whatever they need.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Norfolk, Virginia.
Story. Thank you, Charlene. Coming up, a mini medic with a big heart for saving lives. That's next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a 10-year-old is gaining a following on social media for teaching adults life-saving skills. Jack Dawson was just 2 years old when that spark set in on becoming a paramedic, just like his grandfather, riding along with him in ambulances and practicing CPR on stuffed animals. By age 7, Jack was leading trainings of his own. Known as Junior Jack Mini Medic, he teaches both children and adults how to perform CPR and how to use defibrillators.
When I'm older, I want to be a paramedic because I want to save other people's lives when I'm older.
Jack's motto is, if I can save a life, you can too. And I think he's teaching everyone a pretty good lesson there. Well, thanks for joining us for this edition of Faith Nation. We hope you come back right again here tomorrow. Have a great night.